Here now, Cabot Phillips, Media Director for Campus Reform. He was at the White House event today. Kristan Hawkins, President of Students for Life of America. She was also there. Richard Fowler, I don't think he was there, but he is a good guy. He's a senior fellow at New Leaders Council, a Fox News contributor. Good to see you all.
Thanks for having me.
Richard, I know you as a fair guy. You're not against free thought on campus, are you?
Absolutely not. I think actually free thought and free speech are necessary for the education process. I think every voice should be heard, whether it is the Republican, a conservative voice, a pro-life voice, a pro-choice voice, an LGBTQ voice. All these voices should belong on college campuses. Herein lies a problem with this executive order, is that all it does is reinforce a law that's already on the books that says that you have to promote free speech at colleges to qualify for research dollars, federal research dollars. If the president really wanted to go farther on this EO, he could have defined what hate speech was and created an actual litmus test. This executive order doesn't create a litmus test, just says that you have to promote free speech, meaning this will likely get bogged down in the courts because someone will be like, well, what is free speech? How do you define it? And how am I doing it or not doing it? Which is why this EO is problematic.
Well, Kristan, what about that? Because you've been on campus, as I understand it, you've been shut down by Antifa and others. What has been your experience, and why do you think this was necessary?
You know, I think today was a good step in the right direction because now we have the bully pulpit. You know, the President of the United States calling out these universities for the free speech suppression that goes on every day. And I think this is something that Americans now are being educated on, that these college students are going onto campuses who are courageously standing up for their values are being shut down by their administrations, shouted down by other students. And I think it was good. It was a good day, a good moment to have the President of the United States, the leader of the free world, reaffirm our constitutional right to free speech and free expression.
Cabot, Kristan makes an important point, which is sometimes a president, whether a Democrat or Republican, just by speaking out on an issue, signing the executive order, brings light to something that needs to be told. On the other hand, to Richard's point, will this executive order really have any impact when there's a law already on the books that's not being followed? Why will universities all of a sudden say, okay, the president signed this, so we're going to allow conservatives to speak out?
Well, I think this is going to bring accountability to these universities. For too long, they've been able to operate in the dark with people not really paying attention to what's going on. And I think the president using his position to draw attention is a step in the right direction. I applaud him for doing so. And I've been on over 100 college campuses in the last 3 years with Leadership Institute's Campus Reform. I've seen students be secluded to little free speech zones on campus when they're trying to express their ideas. I've seen conservative groups lose their funding because the administration doesn't agree with their position. I've seen speakers. I've personally had to deal with suppression from administration and students. And so this is an issue that is going to continue to grow if we don't address it. I applaud the president for doing this. And also, it's going to benefit students on both sides. Liberal students will also grow from this because they're going to have more access to ideas they maybe haven't heard in class or from other speakers. They're going to be stronger because of this. This should have bipartisan support.
Right. Now, Richard, you made the point a moment ago, there's already protections in place. And yet, if you look at this video, and there's been case after case where that has not actually happened. If you think about the student out west who was punched in the face. This video is disturbing. Conservative activist Hayden Williams. This was at UC Berkeley just last month in February. And as you see that video play out, it built and built and built, and finally he gets punched. Why is this happening on college campuses?
And it's a sad video because we should be promoting the debate of free ideals on college campuses. But we have to remember that there are thousands of college campuses all across this country, and there are millions of college students. Just to focus on Berkeley or 2 or 3 different examples isn't the best way to go about this. And I agree with everybody on this panel that the idea that we should not have free speech zones and you should be allowed to speak freely and allowed to express your opinions. I'm just not necessarily sure that this executive order does enough to make more universities more accountable. All it says is
Kristan,
we'll reinforce those laws.
This is escalating on college campuses. I was just at a college campus 2 days ago facing protests and had to be escorted in and out with undercover and police officers in full uniform. This is escalating. Ever since President Trump has been elected,
order doesn't fix that.
This is actually
so does it make a difference?
But the executive order doesn't fix that.
Answer that question, Kristan. Does it make a difference, though?
We don't know. We do not know what's going to happen after this executive order. But I think this is a good step in the right direction.
It could have restricted
and we have to
financial
start
aid.
taking this action.
Okay,
it could have done a lot of different things that it didn't do. So to parade it like it's this amazing thing that's going to all
But
of a sudden
you don't know
stop
what it's
this
going to
abuse.
do. None of us
well,
do because
I
it was
read
just
it,
issued
and
today.
I read it, and I know there's no enforcement.
I want to give
That's
Cabot
what
the
I
last
know.
word, Richard. You've both had a lot of chance to speak. Cabot, Richard makes it seem like, oh, it's not going to make any difference at all. A, shouldn't the President of the United States try? And B, when Richard said a moment ago, you're using video from 2 or 3 things. Is it really that isolated? Is it only 2 or 3 campuses?
Well, last I checked, the job of the president is to first and foremost protect and defend the Constitution. And when you have billions of taxpayer dollars going towards institutions that aren't protecting the First Amendment to that Constitution, it's the president's job to step in and at least do the best he can to address that issue. And for every one student that had their story told on stage today, there are thousands of other students that thought their university was able to bully them into submission. They didn't know what their rights were. They didn't know that it was wrong for the university to deny them their rights. And this will draw attention to that, empower people who've had their rights taken from them, and it should scare them, this other side that's trying to take rights from people.
Campuses.
Once again, Ed, without a litmus test, this EO really doesn't have the effect that people think it will have.
Okay.
It has to have a litmus test with clear definitions of what hate speech is and what it isn't, what free speech is and what it isn't, so people in colleges know how to act. And without that in this EO, it doesn't have that power.
We'll see how it plays out.
But
The
today
president
was a
made a
good
promise.
step in the right direction.
Okay. President promised. We'll see whether freedom actually follows up. Cabot, Kristan, Richard, appreciate all your insights.